When we think about the American Revolution, our minds usually jump to the huge battles, the famous generals, right? But the real story, the very bedrock of that history, is actually built from the individual journeys of everyday people. So today, we're going to zoom in and see the entire war through the eyes of just one of them.
And it all starts with this number, 7. Now, what's so special about 7? Well, this is how many years an 18-year-old farmer from the Pennsylvania frontier decided to commit to the cause of American independence. 7 years of his life, just given to a revolution. This is the story of Martin Carringer. And his story is just incredible because his service gives us a perfect cross-section of the entire Revolutionary War experience, from the massive set-piece battles in the East to the gritty, brutal frontier campaigns out West.
Okay, so let's dive in. His journey kicks off right here, on the frontier. He joins what was basically a local militia unit, but it gets professionalized and folded into the Continental Army almost immediately. I mean, this is how you build an army, right? Literally from the ground up, one person at a time.
And his introduction to army life? Absolutely brutal. In the dead of winter, his regiment gets orders to join Washington's main army over in New Jersey. And that meant a nearly 2-month march from Kittanning, Pennsylvania, straight across the Allegheny Mountains. Just think about that. It was a grueling ordeal that tested them to their limits before they'd even seen a single battlefield.
Now, what's really wild is how fast this young recruit was thrown right into the thick of it. There was no gentle break-in period, no easing into it, not at all.
I mean, just look at this timeline. In his first year of combat, Carringer fought in 4 major engagements in just 6 months. That is a relentless pace. This wasn't just a battle. It was a non-stop gauntlet against what was then the most powerful army in the world.
And every single one of these battles was a different, brutal lesson. Bound Brook taught him about surprise attacks. Brandywine was a massive, conventional battle. Paoli, a terrifying nighttime bayonet charge. And at Germantown, he was part of this incredibly complex assault in a dense fog. It was a complete and completely brutal education in 18th century war.
So you'd think, after surviving that meat grinder of battles, he'd earn a break, right? Well, not exactly. Carringer and his regiment then faced something even more fierce. They marched into the infamous winter camp at Valley Forge in December 1777, a name that we all now know means suffering and pure grit.
But here's the thing about Valley Forge. It wasn't just about survival. In the middle of all that hardship, a huge transformation was happening. Under the Prussian officer Baron von Steuben, the army was drilled and trained into a disciplined professional fighting force. Guys like Martin Carringer, who walked into Valley Forge as raw recruits, walked out as hardened professionals.
And just as he's becoming this hardened professional soldier, the war itself was changing. Right when Carringer had become a veteran of the Eastern campaigns, his entire military experience was about to get flipped completely on its head.
He and his regiment, the 8th Pennsylvania, got new orders. They were leaving the main theater of war. They were ordered to march west all the way back to the Pennsylvania frontier. This was a huge deal. It shows the war wasn't just for the big coastal cities. It was a fight for the future of the entire continent.
And this slide, wow, it really lays it all out. It's like he fought 2 completely different wars. He went from fighting these huge conventional battles against British regulars to a gritty, messy frontier war. Out there, it was all about wilderness campaigns, building forts, and fighting for control of the vital rivers against British allied Native American forces. He had to adapt, or he wouldn't make it. So for all this hardship for fighting in 2 wars, what's the paycheck look like? Get this, $6 2/3 per month, officially. It's just a stark reminder of the economics of being a soldier. And of course, the records show that actually getting that pay was, well, let's just say it was often irregular, which just added another layer of difficulty to his service.
So now, out in the West, Carringer's value to the Army begins to shift. Yeah, his battlefield experience was still vital, but he was about to develop a whole new, highly specialized skill set.
He became a logistics specialist. And you might think, logistics? Huh. But out there, on the frontier, logistics was everything. The rivers were the highways. The ability to move supplies, food, and animal feed downriver to places like Pittsburgh, that was the absolute lifeblood of the American war effort in the West.
So what does that actually mean day to day? Well, it meant immense skill and responsibility. He'd serve in these small, 4-man teams, protecting and moving critical cargo. He had to master river navigation, boat handling, and through it all, as the actual records show, he proudly held on to his identity. You can see him signing receipts as Martin Carringer, Private, 8th Pennsylvania Regiment.
And you know what's kind of cool? The records themselves tell a story about the frontier. We see his name spelled in a couple of different ways. It's a perfect reflection of the informal literacy of the time and, the real-world challenges of keeping perfect records in such a rugged and remote place.
So here we are, 7 years of non-stop service, fighting two completely different kinds of war. What does it all amount to? What did his commitment end up securing, both for him and for this new nation?
He received an honorable discharge at Pittsburgh, and the timing is just, you can't make this stuff up. September 4th, 1783, exactly 7 years to the very day after he first signed on. The 18-year-old farm kid was now a 25-year-old seasoned veteran who had literally witnessed the birth of a country.
And for his service, he got some very tangible rewards. Bounty land certificates, 200 acres of land in Pennsylvania, and later on another 100 acres out in Ohio. Now, this wasn't just a pat on the back. This was the foundation for the rest of his life as a farmer. It's a direct link between his personal story and the nation's westward expansion that his service helped make possible.
So here's the crucial point, the main takeaway. Martin Carringer's personal story is a perfect miniature of the entire American military effort. His 7-year journey mirrored the evolution of the Continental Army itself, from just a collection of raw militia units into a tough, professional force that was able to win a war on two totally different fronts.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thought. We know his story because the records, somehow, survived. But it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many millions of other stories, the 7-year journeys of countless people just like Martin Carringer, are the true, untold foundation of a nation?